It's a great honor and pleasure to be here with Professor Amitai Etzioni, who is a university professor and the professor of international relations at the George Washington University. His newest book is Foreign Policy, Thinking Outside the Box. He was originally born in Germany, but today is an Israeli-American sociologist, got his BA and MA from Hebrew University, his doctorate from UC Berkeley, and is really a scholar of socioeconomics and communitarianism. Founder of the Communitarian movement in the early 90s, and was named among the top 100 American intellectuals. This is not just a thinker, but someone who has really lived. I mean, he served in the Israeli War of Independence, and has been very involved in movement building alongside his intellectual work. So thank you for taking this time. The first question I have is, you recently released 8 tips for you don't need to buy this holiday. Some of the things are: decide with members of your family or friends that no one will buy a gift that costs more than a set amount, like $25, or tell your kids that buying a holiday card is lame, but making one is cool, or give time instead of something that costs money, or do potluck dinners. So what is this about for you, and how does this fit into your ideology?
And by the way, I should return you the compliment. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't know that you're one of the most influential voices in the Jewish community, which is very important, I believe. We need tikkun olam, but from my viewpoint, the first olam we should tikkun is our own. Mm-hmm. And so I very much appreciate what you're doing, and
thank you.
I'm here to express my appreciation.
Thank you.
I believe that we are those people who have their basic needs met. And it's very important for me to emphasize, I'm not talking that the poor should love their poverty. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who cannot make ends meet, and we need to help them to reach a level where their basic needs will be satisfied. Mm-hmm. But many of us, let's be plain about the privileged Americans, mm-hmm. got into this worship of the golden calf, mm-hmm. which are consumer goods. And we think we need them, but if for a moment we can walk away from that and realize that much of this is really false idols, we get terribly liberated and suddenly find a lot of time and energy and resources for our children, to spend more time with mm-hmm. our children, more with our friends, with our community. Mm-hmm. To do political action. So just take these crazy months which is coming, where people go into a frenzy about getting endless gifts, which most people don't want them in the first place, don't use them in the first place. And the notion that you express your affection or your success by buying things is something which has been implanted in our head, but it's really not genuine. I mean, showing your affection, the commercial tells us we do that by buying something, but I think that is a very poor way of showing that we care. So these tips are really just a way to have a conversation starter to saying, if you can get off this merry-go-round, mm-hmm. and I don't think you should not have a celebration, but take this time in which you were running from one shop to the other, and instead, serving a soup kitchen. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to be better for it. So I'm really, to drive the point home, I need to give an example which may make some people uncomfortable. Mm. And as a rabbi, sometimes you have to do that. You don't want to do it all the time, right? But sometimes. So I just read a book called Waxed. And it is a serious book. It's a research book. It's not an advocacy book. Mm-hmm. And it says that the industry succeeded in convincing a very high percentage of young American women that they have to use this procedure to remove their hair from their private parts. And that if they don't do that, they are somewhat defective. Mm. So here's one more thing. Because the reason I use that example, because we're so used that we need to have a flat TV, we need to have the most recent cell phone. People cannot even think about it anymore. Mm-hmm. But that one is such a recent craze. 5 years ago, nobody knew they needed it.
Right.
Now, if you have a bush, it's considered you're completely out of it.
Right.
So here's an example where I think everybody should stop for a moment and say, this is crazy. This is something been implanted to us by people trying to make money off our body.
Right.
And don't we have better things to do? And now the next step, they're trying to convince men of the same issue as us. So that's what I'm talking about. And as you kindly mentioned earlier, those who want to kind of have this in a video form, I have on my most often watched video on YouTube is you do not need to buy this.
So it's interesting. In dealing with quality of life, we oftentimes think of governmental responsibility of how they structure society and economic justice. We think of corporate social responsibility. But here you're also talking about our own responsibility to make better decisions. So I wonder, how might communities reinforce some of these values around consumer behavior and patterns? How might community pressure help us to get where we need to be?
Well, to start first with something which may not sound completely serious, but for me to start, don't allow anybody to come to synagogue with a tie. I mean, just to symbolize that less is more. I mean, we don't worship goods. Let's not make bar mitzvahs into what they are. Each one outbidding the other with what? Not with their learned hadrashah, and not with their. We used to do this for Russian child. I don't know if you do this anymore, but maybe everybody should do a day of community service in the bar mitzvah.
So here's an example. So I'm involved with something called Tav HaYosher, which means that kosher establishments should not only be kosher, they should be yosher. They should treat their workers properly. Now everyone says, "Oh, we agree. That's wonderful. Treat the workers properly." But they can't shift their consumer patterns. They still go to the place that doesn't have it certified. So how would you incentivize? I mean, how could communities help to reinforce a model of shifting patterns in such a way?
I don't have any magic answer to that. And by the way, it already presupposes something that there is a community. Because you see, for that social force to work, you have to have the bonding first. And if people don't really care about the member of that community, they will not be able to be effective influencing each other. So we may first have to be sure that we get more of the psychic energy into the community. Then the next step is, frankly, it's one thing for you to come to tell them what Yosher is, and the other thing is to have a discussion with them what they think Yosher is, because out of such a dialogue will come commitment. So, but most important is, the mechanism are all terribly familiar. When we want to raise money for a synagogue, we know what to do. We put the plaques up or ask people to pledge. That's no different. So I paid for my sins by teaching 2 years ethics at the Harvard Business School. And everybody was out there to make more money, but then they have one day a year in which they do good. But they didn't wait for all the students to volunteer that day. They came and knocked on the door. Today is the day we're going to Buxbury to do good. And so the mechanisms I don't think are mysterious. I think what is important are two parts. A is first more bonding. And second, more dialogue and less telling people.
Okay, interesting. So now it's very old news now, but everyone used to talk about Putnam's bowling alone, right? Is it true that communal bonds have broken down and continue to break down? And are there any trends which demonstrate the opposite? Any areas of American life, or even anywhere in the world, really, where we see actually communal bonds getting stronger?
Well, my good friend Robert Putnam came up with an extremely clever title. I think it was $1 million. Bowling alone is the name of the book. You know, never ever anybody bowled alone. So there's a complete misnomer. What the book really shows that we used to bowl in formal leagues, and we now bowl informally. So in fact, they're more communal than it used to be. It used to be PTA, now we have more. So in effect, no, there is no decline of community. There are different kinds, more informal, less established, less hierarchical.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But it's a very, very rich communal life, by the way, including on the internet.
Right.
And so there are gay groups, there are all kinds.
Meaning it's a human need that people will fulfill. It's just a matter of which model they'll.
Right, or, some play poker together.
Right.
So, yeah, right. But I don't think there's a, neither did Putnam ever argue that there's a loss of.
Okay, interesting.
The point which Israel was coming back to, especially in the recent days, is communities can be against other communities. So what he's pointed out very much, that you not only need communities, but you also need what they call bridging communities. So the question is how to have various communities, even within the Jewish community, relate to each other rather than being a nasty competitive with each other thought.
Right. So now turning to communitarianism, in the 21st century, or really in the 2016, what's happening in the world, and in particular in America, that demonstrates more or less of a need for this model of communitarianism? Is it like, and what sort of problems have emerged that might demonstrate a particular need?
Well, I'm very flattered by your question because I consider the invitation to spend here the next 3 months to answer that question. And so I'm going to take again the lazy way out.
Okay.
Everybody, please forgive me. My much less popular YouTube is called the 5-minute Communitarian. So I try to answer regular your question there. Basically, is we need to take more responsibility for each other and rely both less on the government and less on the private sector. So there is a room for government, for regulation, for social security, for benefits. There is a room for the private sector, but there is that third sector in which we are family members and we are brothers and sisters and we are members of ethnic and religious communities, and we have been overbuilding these two and short-shrifting this one. And all we have to figure out the functions, the division of labor between the three sectors. Now, two, and I give you an example, and I'm afraid that has to be my closing parting, not short, I don't like short, my parting line. So, grieving is largely done in community, right? Somebody dies, you come over, friends come over, family come over, help the family cope with the strategy, with tragedy. Well, some people say that's not professional. They don't grieve properly. When my son died, I was told I didn't go through the right 4 stages properly. And some people recommended that the government should send a social worker to show people how to grieve properly. I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think there is room, there are some things. I wouldn't ask the community to do this kind of schizophrenic on their own. So there's some things you need professional help with. But on this one, it's actually a very good example where the community can take good part of our need, and we're better off when we leave this particular function for the community. So what happened, we denuded the community and overbuilt the government and the private sector, and as a result, it's somewhat declining, though far from dead. So we need to rejuvenate communities by bonding more, by dialoguing more, and by doing less substituting, buying things for reaching out to other human beings.
Well, amazing. Thank you.